You can feel it long before you ever see the store closing sign taped to the glass. It starts with the parking lot, once packed on Saturday mornings, now a vast, gray slab of empty concrete. It's in the aisles that used to be overflowing with merchandise, now thinned out, disorganized, and quiet. You think America's biggest retail chains are too enormous, too iconic, and too familiar to ever truly fall? Think again. Because beneath the surface of daily life, a quiet retail apocalypse is unfolding, one closure at a time. This isn't just about profit margins or quarterly earnings calls. This is about the shrinking middle class, the suffocating cost of living, and the terrifying realization that everyday America is becoming harder to afford. From runaway inflation to organized retail theft costing the industry billions, the forces squeezing these companies are the same ones squeezing your wallet. We are witnessing a structural shift, a meltdown of the commercial landscape that has defined this country for 50 years. The brands that fed us, clothed us, and employed our neighbors are quietly preparing to vanish from our cities and small towns. By the time we reach 2026, the map of American retail will look unrecognizable. This video isn't just about business, it's about the death of the American neighborhood. Stay with us, because understanding this collapse is the first step to surviving the economic winter that is coming. Number 10, Big Lots. For decades, Big Lots was the quiet sanctuary of America's budget-minded households. It was the place where a living room makeover didn't require a second mortgage. Do you remember the feeling of walking in there? It was a treasure hunt. You could find a 50% off sofa, a cheap rug for the hallway, or just a few small comforts that made a rental feel like a home without draining your entire paycheck. It was reliable. It was there for the teachers, the nurses, and the young families just starting out. But as we look toward 2026, that image has shattered. The chain that once survived by helping families stretch every dollar is now fighting a losing battle for its own survival. The collapse has been swift and brutal. In a massive wave of retrenchment, Big Lots shuttered more than 500 stores, a closure wave so large it became one of the biggest retail wipeouts we have seen in years. Following this, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, signaling a desperate attempt to liquidate and salvage what little value remains of its nationwide footprint. So, why is this happening? The irony is tragic. Big Lots didn't collapse because people stopped wanting cheap goods. It collapsed because even the cheapest goods became too expensive for the customers who depended on them the most. It is a trap of modern inflation. As rents, insurance, utilities, and shipping costs soared, Big Lots found itself squeezed between rising operating expenses and a customer base that is completely tapped out. Shoppers who once filled carts with furniture and seasonal decor now walk in to pick up only the bare essentials: paper towels, snacks, maybe a single household item if the price feels manageable. Inflation didn't just squeeze profits, it squeezed the joy out of the small purchases that once made this store a destination. The human cost of this silent crisis is palpable. In dozens of communities, the closures feel personal. Older residents talk about wandering aisles where staff knew their names, now replaced by empty shelves. One employee described the gut punch of showing up one morning to find store closing banners draped across the windows, a sudden end to years of service. Landlords in smaller towns quietly admit that once Big Lots leaves, it may take years before anyone else can fill a space that large. What is disappearing isn't simply a discount chain, it's a lifeline for middle-income and fixed-income Americans who are already drowning in the rising cost of everyday life. Number 9, Dollar General. If Big Lots was the sanctuary for the budget-conscious, Dollar General was the safety net for America's working class. For more than a decade, this company was an unstoppable force, opening stores at a relentless pace, sometimes 3 locations a day, spreading deep into rural towns, back roads, and neglected neighborhoods that bigger retailers ignored. It was the place where $5 could still buy dinner, cleaning supplies, and a little peace of mind. But by late 2025, the chain built on low prices discovered a painful paradox: when the cost of living crushes your customers, even cheap stops working. The aggressive expansion has hit a brick wall. Dollar General announced it would close roughly 140 underperforming locations, including flagship stores and their newer pop-shelf concepts. This isn't just a correction, it's a warning signal for the entire economy. Executives have quietly acknowledged something alarming: shoppers are coming in less often, spending less when they do come, and avoiding discretionary items almost entirely. A store once filled with cheap household goods and impulse buys now sees customers walking out with only the bare minimum: bread, soap, a box of cereal, and only if the price hasn't jumped since last week. The core customer that Dollar General relied on, lower-income households, has been hit the hardest by the silent crisis of rising rent, utilities, and groceries. When someone says a dollar store doesn't feel like a dollar store anymore, it isn't just a complaint. It is a symptom of the economic pressure squeezing millions of Americans at once. In many regions, a basic bottle of shampoo is now $6, snacks cost $4, and the idea of stretching $10 across a week feels impossible. Inside the stores, the exhaustion is visible. Some locations operate with just one employee per shift, acting as cashier, stocker, cleaner, and security all in one. Shelves sit half-filled, lights flicker, and cardboard boxes pile up in the aisles. These aren't just signs of corporate neglect, they are signs of a retail model pushed beyond its limits. As one frustrated shopper noted, "It's not a convenience anymore, it's a reminder of how much we've lost." The closures reveal a deeper truth: the communities that depended on Dollar General the most are the very places where it can no longer survive. Number 8, 7-Eleven. For generations, the glow of a 7-Eleven sign meant one thing: stability. No matter the hour, no matter the neighborhood, convenience was always within reach. It was the comfort stop for night shift workers, the lifeline for last-minute medicine, and the only place open when the rest of the city slept. It was a beacon of the 24-hour American lifestyle. But as we head into 2026, that once bright symbol is dimming quietly, steadily, and in the places where it matters most. The parent company, 7&I Holdings, announced it would close roughly 444 stores across North America, one of the largest convenience store retrenchments in recent memory. The reasons behind this retreat paint a disturbing picture of the new American reality. It is a perfect storm of rising operating costs and surging insurance premiums, but the dark undercurrent is crime. Crime levels in many urban areas have made 24-hour operations harder, riskier, and more expensive to maintain. Some franchises report shoplifting occurring dozens of times a week, eating away at razor-thin margins. Others say they simply can't find employees willing to work the overnight shift anymore, the risk is too high for the pay. In several cities, the fallout is visible. Stores are reducing hours, shutting down at midnight for the first time in decades. Steel gates appear over windows that used to stay open around the clock. Card machines sit behind plastic shields. In neighborhoods that relied on 7-Eleven for late-night essentials, medicine, baby formula, a gallon of milk, the closures feel like more than a business decision. They feel like a retreat. What many people don't realize is that the modern American lifestyle was built around the assumption that convenience is limitless. But when the economics of staying open no longer make sense, that model begins to break. Electricity, staffing, insurance, and security now outpace the profit from midnight coffee and early morning snacks. As one longtime customer put it, the lights that once promised safety now flicker with uncertainty. For seniors and night workers, losing a store like 7-Eleven is more than inconvenient, it is destabilizing. It is the end of an era where we could take availability for granted. Number 7, Best Buy. There was a time when walking into a Best Buy felt like stepping directly into the future. Do you remember the energy? Rows of glowing laptops, the deep thump of demo speakers, and walls of brand new televisions lighting up the aisles. This wasn't just a store, it was where Americans went to touch tomorrow. Families tested gadgets together on weekends, teenagers saved up all summer for their first pair of high-end headphones, and for many, the blue-shirt employees were the trusted guides to the digital age. It was a ritual of discovery. But by 2026, that familiar blue and yellow world is dimming. While Best Buy is not collapsing outright, it is shrinking in ways that reveal a deeper, more painful shift in how we live. The data confirms a quiet retreat. Since 2020, the company has shuttered dozens of locations, including 24 stores in fiscal 2024, with plans to close another 10 to 15 stores through fiscal 2025. On paper, these numbers might look like standard corporate restructuring. In reality, they represent the death of in-person tech retail. The challenge isn't a lack of interest in technology. Americans are more addicted to screens than ever. The problem is the process. Best Buy has fallen victim to showrooming. Most shoppers now browse the physical aisles to touch the product, only to pull out their phones and order it from Amazon, where the price is lower, delivery is faster, and the checkout line doesn't exist. Meanwhile, the rent for these massive tech showrooms in urban centers has reached sky-high levels. Add in surging insurance, utilities, and wages, and the economics simply break down. For older customers, this shift feels personal and isolating. Many say they hate buying electronics online. They want to hear someone explain the difference between products, to ask real questions to a human being. But with fewer specialists on the floor and fewer stores overall, that experience is evaporating. Walking into a remaining store today often feels eerie. A showroom without enough staff doesn't inspire confidence, it simply feels abandoned. As Best Buy leans heavily into automation and smaller formats, one truth becomes clear: when even technology retailers struggle to justify physical space, the impact ripples far beyond electronics. It signals that our public gathering spaces are being replaced by digital isolation. Number 6, Subway. For years, Subway was the unofficial lunchroom of America. It was inescapable. The smell of freshly baked bread, the clatter of toppings behind the glass counter, the familiar question, "What can I get for you today?" It was the kind of everyday comfort millions of Americans didn't think twice about. At its peak, Subway had more locations than McDonald's, Starbucks, and Taco Bell combined. There were small towns where a Subway was the only restaurant for miles. It was fast, predictable, and everywhere. But as we enter 2026, that once unstoppable sandwich empire is shrinking at a pace few expected. The decline has been nothing short of a meltdown. In 2024 alone, Subway closed more than 600 U.S. locations, pushing its national footprint below 20,000 stores for the first time in decades. Compared with its peak in the mid-2010s, the chain has now lost over 7,600 locations. This is a stunning reversal for what was once the world's largest restaurant brand. The causes run deeper than simple competition. It is a crisis of identity and economics. Customers complain that the quality isn't what it used to be: bread that feels less fresh, vegetables that don't look as crisp, and prices that no longer make sense for a sandwich. Overexpansion left many shops cannibalizing each other, forcing franchise owners into razor-thin margins and, in some cases, bankruptcy. Meanwhile, American tastes have shifted. People want food that feels real, local, and crafted, not a formula repeated thousands of times a day. Yet, the most striking change isn't on the menu, it's in the mood. Many longtime customers say the experience has become cold and impersonal. As one viewer wrote, "Subway used to feel warm. Now it just feels tired." That sentiment echoes across thousands of struggling stores: less joy, less care, less connection. Subway's parent company is desperately trying to reinvent the chain with streamlined menus and updated designs, but for thousands of neighborhoods, the damage is done. The Eat Fresh era is fading, leaving behind empty storefronts and strip malls that can't afford another vacancy. Number 5, Walgreens. For decades, Walgreens was the heartbeat of countless American neighborhoods. It was more than a store, it was a utility. It was the place you stopped for a prescription refill, grabbed a few essentials on the way home, or picked up cold medicine late at night. In many rural towns, the local Walgreens was the closest thing to dependable healthcare within miles. It represented a promise that help was always just around the corner. But by 2026, that sense of reliability is slipping away, replaced by a healthcare dessert crisis. In late 2024, Walgreens announced one of the largest pharmacy retrenchments in U.S. history. Around 1,200 stores will close over a 3-year period, wiping out roughly 14% of its nationwide footprint. About 500 locations are expected to shut down in 2025 alone. For a chain with over 8,000 stores, the message is clear: the old pharmacy model is broken. The pressures are piling up from every direction. Rent and insurance costs continue to rise, while pharmacy wages have climbed sharply due to staffing shortages across the healthcare system. But there is a darker factor at play: theft. Once a minor inconvenience, organized retail crime has grown into a financial threat that corporations can no longer ignore. In many remaining stores, shelves sit behind plexiglass or entire aisles are locked, turning quick errands into frustrating waits for staff assistance. The human impact of this retreat is immediate and dangerous. In parts of Arizona, Ohio, and the rural South, seniors now face drives of 20 miles or more just to get their prescriptions. One 69-year-old customer captured the despair perfectly. "I don't know how to order medicine online. I just want to talk to a pharmacist." That small sentence captures a bigger truth. For millions of Americans, a pharmacy isn't just a retail transaction, it is the last physical place where care still feels personal. Walgreens calls these closures a strategic reset, but for the communities losing their only nearby pharmacy, it feels like an abandonment. Number 4, Macy's. For generations, Macy's was not just a department store, it was an experience. It was the anchor of the American mall and the center of the holiday spirit. The sparkling window displays, the wooden escalators gliding past endless racks of clothing, the iconic red star glowing above city streets, families made memories here. Teenagers bought their first prom dresses and suits here. For many Americans, Macy's wasn't just a place to shop, it was a ritual stitched into the fabric of growing up. But by 2026, that tradition is fading like the last lights of a long holiday season. The company has announced a sweeping restructuring plan that is reshaping the retail landscape entirely. Over 150 underperforming locations are scheduled to close within 3 years, including 66 stores shutting down in 2025 alone. This isn't a minor trim, it is a full-scale retreat from entire regions, suburbs, and downtown districts where Macy's once stood as a cultural pillar. Inside the stores that remain open, the decline is visible and depressing. Shoppers report wide aisles with sparse merchandise, clearance racks multiplying across floors, and lighting that once felt warm now feeling tired and dim. Employees describe the mood as quiet, like a museum. Some have spoken about the emotional weight of lowering the Macy's sign for the last time. It felt like their town was losing a piece of itself. The reasons for the decline are familiar but powerful. Online shopping has redefined convenience, while rising rent and labor costs push these massive department stores into impossible territory. But the biggest driver is the vanishing middle class. Consumers who once visited Macy's weekly now think twice about every discretionary purchase. Even the iconic holiday rush can no longer guarantee the crowds it once drew. As Macy's transforms, some former locations are being converted into apartments, offices, or fulfillment centers. It is a sign of the times. What once symbolized middle-class aspiration is now being repurposed for mere practicality. Number 3, Kroger. For millions of families, Kroger has long been the dependable backbone of American grocery shopping. It was the starting point of the weekly routine, the smell of fresh produce near the entrance, a box of cereal for the kids, a quick stop for dinner ingredients after a long shift. In many suburbs and mid-sized cities, Kroger wasn't just a supermarket, it was the anchor of daily life. But by 2026, even this grocery giant is feeling the squeeze of an economy where everything costs more and loyalty is evaporating. While the company still reports modest growth on paper, the pressure beneath the surface is unmistakable. Labor costs have climbed, insurance and utilities grow more expensive each year, and freight inflation continues to erode margins. The situation reached a boiling point when the company's ambitious plan to merge with Albertsons, a deal intended to create a supermarket fortress, was blocked by federal regulators. What was supposed to be a lifeline has turned into limbo, leaving hundreds of stores uncertain about their future across states like California, Illinois, and Washington. Kroger has begun quietly closing or consolidating locations, focusing only on the strongest markets. These closures often don't make national headlines, but they leave behind a hauntingly familiar scene: empty parking lots, shuttered entrances, hiring signs that were never taken down, and aisles that feel abandoned. Shoppers who visited weekly now come less often, calculating every mile of gas and every item in the cart. Some switch to discount chains like Aldi, others order online to avoid impulse spending. Even longtime loyal customers say the same thing: groceries feel more expensive and trips feel less meaningful. Inside the stores, employees describe shorter shifts, fewer colleagues on duty, and a sense that the old grocery model, big floors, big staff, big inventory, is becoming impossible to sustain. Kroger isn't collapsing, but it is tightening, trimming, and rethinking its entire structure in a way that leaves many communities behind. Number 2, fast food chains, the death of the dollar menu. For generations, America ran on fast food. It was the unofficial fuel of busy families, late-night workers, long road trips, and childhood weekends. A quick burger, a cheap soda, a familiar menu. Fast food wasn't glamorous, but it was dependable. It fit the rhythm of American life. But in 2026, that rhythm is breaking. The biggest change is simple and devastating: fast food is no longer cheap. Between 2019 and the present day, menu prices at major chains like McDonald's and Burger King climbed roughly 40%, driven by rising wages, higher ingredient costs, and the most persistent inflation in a generation. Meals that once felt affordable are now pushing $10 or $12. Families who used to grab takeout once a week now think twice. Young adults who grew up on dollar menus look at the digital menu boards with disbelief. The value simply isn't there anymore. This shift is hitting restaurants hard. Across the U.S., hundreds of fast food locations have quietly shut down as traffic slows and operating expenses soar. Franchise owners report that electricity bills, rent, and insurance have climbed sharply, while customers are ordering fewer combos and more single items to save money. Even the desperate reintroduction of $5 meal deals has failed to fully reverse the trend. But the decline isn't just economic, it's emotional. For many Americans, fast food has lost its soul. The experience feels more automated, more rushed, more disconnected. A 60-year-old customer described it best: "Taking my kids to McDonald's used to feel like a treat. Now it just feels empty." That sense of fading joy, of a ritual becoming a mere transaction, is reshaping how the country eats. As younger generations prefer healthier options and older adults crave real meals, fast food is losing the cultural dominance it held for 50 years. If the chains that once fed America at a low cost are struggling, the final question becomes inevitable: what happens when the biggest retailer of them all starts to feel the pressure? Number 1, Walmart. This is the one that changes everything. For half a century, Walmart has been the center of gravity for everyday American life. It's where families bought groceries, where parents picked up school supplies, where retirees walked the aisles each morning as part of their routine. In small towns, Walmart wasn't just a store, it was the economic heartbeat, providing jobs, tax revenue, and a sense of community. But by 2026, even this titan is feeling the strain of a retail landscape shifting under its feet. Despite generating over $600 billion in annual revenue, Walmart is facing a silent threat that grows each year: retail theft and organized shoplifting. According to industry estimates, shrink costs U.S. retailers more than $112 billion, and Walmart has publicly acknowledged that these losses are unacceptable and increasingly difficult to absorb. In certain locations, especially those with rising crime or high operating costs, stores have been forced to shut down, often with little warning. And when a Walmart closes, the impact hits harder than almost any other retailer. Hundreds lose their jobs instantly. Local tax revenue evaporates. Entire shopping plazas go dark because that anchor is gone. The pressures aren't limited to theft. Wage increases, higher utility bills, surging insurance premiums, and the cost of securing massive stores all eat into profit margins. At the same time, customers, especially middle-income households, are tightening their spending, making fewer trips, and shifting toward online orders. Walmart's answer has been to invest heavily in automation, robotics, and AI-powered logistics. It's a strategy that boosts efficiency, but also signals a long-term shift toward fewer physical stores and leaner staffing. For older Americans, the change feels deeply personal. Many describe Walmart as the one place that made them feel connected, a familiar routine in an increasingly unpredictable world. When their neighborhood store closes, they don't just lose convenience, they lose a piece of belonging. Walmart isn't collapsing, but it is evolving in ways that reflect a larger, terrifying truth: if a corporation this massive is tightening, retreating, and rethinking its footprint, then the forces reshaping American retail aren't temporary, they are structural. The shifts we have analyzed across these 10 retailers are more than isolated business struggles. They are warning signs of a deeper transformation shaping everyday American life. Rising costs, shrinking margins, and the rapid pace of digital dependence have created the conditions for a retail apocalypse that is hitting home in 2026. When even the most familiar brands, the ones we thought would last forever, are forced to retreat or reinvent themselves, communities feel the impact first. We are facing longer drives for essentials, fewer late-night options, and entire plazas going dark. This is the new reality of the American landscape. But within this disruption, there is a lesson. The era of limitless convenience and cheap consumption is ending. We are entering a time where value matters more than volume, and where local resilience may be the only answer to corporate retreat. The question now becomes personal: how close will the next closure come to your neighborhood? Will you be prepared when the store closing signs appear on your main street? If this breakdown helped you see the bigger picture, if it validated what you are feeling when you look at your own town, then you are in the right place. Subscribe to US Reality Check and turn on notifications. We are just getting started uncovering the economic truths that the mainstream news won't tell you. Don't just watch the shift happen, understand it.